A Spirit Airlines flight has been shot with guns, forcing it to abort a landing. On 11th of November 2024, Spirit Airlines Flight 951 from Fort Lauderdale in Florida to Port-au-Prince in Haiti.
On this day in 1804, the world's first free black republic was founded. 220 years ago, Haiti won independence from French colonial rule, the culmination.
The Kenyan police are in Haiti, and allow me to give my view as a Kenyan on the Haitian problem. We will never solve the problem of Haiti before we understand the history of Haiti. Where did Haiti come from? Haiti has a very painful history, which would have led to where they are today. Because Haiti is said to be the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Haiti is found in the Caribbean. And Haiti was formerly known as the island of Espanol, as it was given that name by the Christopher Columbus. Here we have Haiti bordering the Dominican Republic, and all over Haiti is surrounded by water. In 1804, which is very important, I want you to mark this. The Haiti, they got their independence from the French people. They defeated the French. And there is what is always known as war reparation, where when you go to a war with a certain country, you will have to pay them after the war ended and if they defeat you. But in this case, the Haitians defeated the French, but they were forced to pay the French for defeating them. And after the French had colonized them and stolen a lot of resources from the Haitian land. So Haiti had to sign for reparations. They had to pay the France. So the main question you may be asking is, why did Haiti allow this to happen? Haiti, as I have told you, is an island. And the slave trade back then was a real issue that was being supported by those world powers, those big countries. So in a way of avoiding sanctions and in a way of avoiding Haiti being dipped into economical quagmire, they decided to assign the reparations so that they can pay the France people. Welcome to the Crooks of Politics, and my name is Abisai Olano.
On this day in 1804, the world's first free black republic was founded. 220 years ago, Haiti won independence from French colonial rule, the culmination of the only successful slave rebellion in history. Haiti had been France's most lucrative plantation colony, known as Saint-Domingue. 90% of its population were enslaved, half of them African-born. In 1791, they revolted against their masters. They burst into country mansions, set fire to cane fields, and killed their enslavers. This was the beginning of the Haitian Revolution, a 13-year liberation struggle led by former slave Toussaint Louverture. It was ignited by the French Revolution, and in turn...
In the layman language, or in short, France were big boys and they were dining with the big boys. So for Haiti to add minimal problems with the big boys, which until the countries that were ruling the world back then, they had to agree with the demands of the French, the France. The Hovatua, after signing to pay the French this reparation, this money, and as I've told you, the reason was to avoid sanctioning of Haiti, because most of the world power back then was supporting the slave trade. And now, Haiti, which was a nation that was built on the backbone of the slave trade, had gone through revolution, and they were now chasing the French people. In 1914, another worst thing that led to the current situation in Haiti also happened. The United States of America decided to steal gold that were over $500,000 back then. Just over that one. It means the effect on the Haitian economy was huge. Now today, the United States of America, under the umbrella of UN, decided to send troops for peacekeeping in Haiti. So that's why I say that without understanding the history of Haiti, we may not solve the Haitian problem. And there is an ideology in Haiti that the ruling elite own over 90% of the Haitian resources. And The majority of the Haitians who are languishing in poverty are part of this so-called gang in Haiti. Before any Western media, you hear a news from Western media. After hearing a news from Western media, ask this question: what is the other side of this story? Before we call different organizations in the world to be terrorists, what do they say? Can we hear about what they're saying and weigh things? Before we call the gangs in Haiti to be gangs, can we hear their sides? And can we hear the sides of the Haitian people? What do they say about this situation? Before winning the support of the Haitian people, the gangs in Haiti will never be defeated. And if truly the gangs of Haiti are fighting with what they have in their mind, that the USA who stole huge amount of gold from their banks, which has been using the umbrella of the United Nations, has sent different troops to go for peacekeeping in Haiti, they will never trust this. And they will actually get the support. So we need to start thinking from this point. This is my view. And I would like you to also weigh this. If you are a country which were colonized, for example, Kenya, which was colonized by the English people, and then today, English people, having in mind the atrocities that were caused, the wounds that never healed, they are sending people to be peacekeepers. Will we never ever accept this? So, we need to think about the Haitian problem in bird's eye view. Bye-bye and see you on the next video.
Nimesikia mumemwambia Steven ya kwamba kulia, kushoto, mbele na nyuma lazima usimame rais.
In the GNZ TV, we bring for you news in the most simplified manner. We are able to read between the lines together, and we are able to join the dots. We are able to find the missing puzzle. Subscribe and like this video to get more updates. My name is Abisai Orlando.